Well, now and we wait some more. Patrick Tuohey with the Show Me Institute, a Missouri-based think tank, is joining us here on KCMO. He obviously has been all over the stadium story that now extends on for how long, who knows. But we know that the Kansas side of the state line is expected to make it official coming up on Monday that they will extend the Star Bond offer in Kansas. We also know that that has to be extended for 12 months. That's what the law requires. But they can have a nuance in there saying, hey, we will not consider some type of an offer from these teams after such and such date. So there's still some things to figure out here. But Patrick, what was your reaction to that news last week?
A yawn, Pete. I saw this coming. I think everyone who's serious about following economic development negotiations should have seen this coming. I'm sorry that apparently a significant number of the Missouri legislature did not see it coming, but this is what happens. Any business operating in Kansas City or in the area knows that the first thing you want to do is create a competition, either between cities or counties or states. And so I predicted this. I mentioned this in my testimony before both the House and the Senate in Missouri, and I'm not surprised by the outcome, but I'm really disappointed that it seems so many people were.
So in hindsight, would you have just told the Missouri legislature to not bother with a special session and just let these teams figure out what they want to do? Like, is that the part of, I know that ideally you would say they shouldn't offer the deal they offered, but the special session that was called was specifically about, in large part, the Chiefs and the Royals. Would you have just not held the special session?
Yeah. And look, the governor introduced legislation or his supporters introduced legislation in the last few days of the regular session. It didn't go anywhere because, they didn't have hearings. Nobody kind of knew what the offer was. So they had a special session. And again, it's all a complete waste of time. All they did was increase the potential cost to Missourians, or increase the potential cost to Kansans because, again, the states use this as leverage. Kansas legislators seem to understand this. So I'm disappointed that they are going along with it. It's not surprising, but it is disappointing that so many people whose job it is to kind of keep an eye on taxpayers' money and who run for office saying that they are fiscal conservatives turn out that they're not.
So why are you giving credit and what are you admiring, maybe the wrong word, but what would you give credit to the Kansas side of the state line for doing? Because they could have also held firm to their own deadline here and said, listen, we gave you a year. You got to offer you a year. You got two offers on the table. You got till July 1. Figure it out.
Well, no, that's exactly right. And in interviews with you, Ty Masterson and Dan Hawkins seemed to indicate that they knew what was going on. That's a good sign. I also like that Kansas has not set up their incentive regime in a way that allows them to, give away so much money to teams compared to what Missouri can do. And you talked about that in the last segment. So I was hopeful that Kansas legislators had a spine, but if they extend this, it seems that they don't. And again, it's not surprising, but we've seen this for years. And, you go back to 2019 when Kansas Governor Laura Kelly and Missouri Governor Mike Parson, did their part to stop the border war. And they both admitted that this had been a huge cost to the region without any benefit to taxpayers. So again, it's difficult to understand. At some point, they indicate that they know they're being played. And then at some point, they totally fall hook, line, and sinker for the same game.
Patrick Tuohey is here on KCMO. So what about the Mark Donovan letter where he writes to the Kansas legislature and says it's not also just about the stadium, it will be about area development, maybe practice facilities and, business offices and things like that. Does that make it more appealing to Kansas? Should it?
Well, it certainly shouldn't. Look, he's doing exactly what he's going to do in his situation, which is dangle as much, make as many promises, but not be held to them, of course. and kind of sell the sizzle and not the steak. Why the Kansas City Chiefs should be investing in, hotels or restaurants or office spaces, I don't understand. Run a stadium. Now I get it from their point of view because they want to generate even more revenue from a field. But from taxpayers' point of view, why are you going to subsidize a stadium and hotels and restaurants around it when you have privately funded hotels and restaurants that compete with them? It's bad economics. It's bad for taxpayers, but legislators are so desperate for, a ribbon cutting that they kind of give up on all the financial basics. This is not how you run government. This is not how you operate an economy. And again, they sometimes indicate that they know that, but they don't act as if they do.
Well, also, Mark Donovan says in his letter here, the presence of an NFL franchise in Kansas will serve as a powerful engine for immediate and long-term growth, driving national attention, sustained tourism, and billions more in private development across the state. What are you saying no to? All the above?
That is all BS. If you look at the gross domestic product of cities that lose teams, they do not change. Stadiums do not drive this kind of economic development. They never do. You look at Truman Sports Complex as an example. There's one less hotel at least than when I moved here 20 years ago, but they know that that's the claim to make because they know that that's what legislators want to hear. The way you grow an economy is by providing basic services at a low cost to taxpayers. And if you can do that, and if you make yourself a good place to invest, then businesses and entrepreneurs and families come along. You don't grow your economy by hollowing out your tax base for the benefit of billionaires. It doesn't work. And I know I sound like an open record, but St. Louis has 4 downtown stadiums. Baltimore has at least 2 downtown stadiums. Those are not places that people point to as, economic growth powerhouses. We've seen this time and again. We understand that this is all just BS, but I get it. The teams make those promises, and politicians are so desperate to have even a pretend win that they go along with it. So, no, having a team is not going to drive the economy of the area. And certainly if the stadium just moves a few miles from where it is now, how is that regionally going to drive anything? It's not. It's laughable on its face, but we know from history it's absolutely untrue.
All right. So what now? How do you see this playing out, Patrick?
I've got no idea. I mean, we'll see what kind of offer the Kansas legislators entertain. Maybe they're going to be asked to sweeten the deal. Maybe they're going to empower localities to give more. Maybe they're going to try to increase a sales tax to give to the teams, just like Jackson County was asked to do in 2024. I know the outcome isn't going to be growth and economic development, but, how many of these legislators can be fooled into thinking that, moving a stadium a few miles is going to make any kind of economic difference. So again, my point is I've been watching all of this. I can't predict what these guys do because they just don't seem to know what's going on.
Do you think that it matters? This is something that I think we probably haven't spent enough time on. In Missouri, the stadiums, of course, were not owned by the teams. There are major benefits to that. The upkeep is paid for by the taxpayer. There are tax benefits. There's a lot of reasons to not want to privately own these stadiums because basically in Missouri, they get all the benefits of being a private owner without some of the expenses attached to it, right? Does that give Missouri a leg up in this in a way that maybe we haven't discussed enough of compared to Kansas where it's all private?
Yeah, probably. I mean, teams absolutely do not want to own their stadiums. They should. I don't understand why we let them off the hook. But yes, if Kansas is making look, even if Kansas is making some foolish deals, if they're not as foolish as Missouri in saying that you must own the park, that's great. Because again, you don't want teams to be able to vacuum up all this taxpayer money and then be able to leave town and have any responsibility for the infrastructure that was built explicitly for them. Part of the part of the argument that was made in the legislature was like, look, these parks belong to us. Of course, taxpayers have to take care of them. Like it's just so stupid. It's so incredibly stupid. Teams should own everything that they need to make money, and they make plenty of money. But over the years, legislators, taxpayers have gone along with these bad ideas. And so, now we're kind of arguing against ourselves. But yes, if Kansas makes the teams own the parks, own the structures, that is better than having taxpayers on it.
Yeah, and don't forget, too, all the other team owners in Major League Baseball and the NFL watch this stuff closely because there's a snowball effect to all this for cities around the country that also matters as well in terms of other cities putting their best foot forward to be involved in these stadium builds.
Yeah, it was exciting last year that, the Jackson County vote kind of told owners, gosh, maybe the era of getting everything we want is over. Virginia turned down the opportunity to take the Washington, D.C. teams across the border. But, it may be that we lose all that and we're right back to where we are, which is taxpayers diverting billions of dollars to men and women who just don't need the money, but have figured out how to get it.
Well, no matter what, it's going to be worse because the state deal on the Missouri side was non-existent the last several decades.
No, that's right. And I can see where, Clay County's offer that Clay County was never going to be able to generate as much sales tax as Jackson County would. But when you introduce
the state
money,
yeah,
maybe Clay can be more competitive. But again, these teams just see like, well, we're going to take everything. We're going to take everything we can. And again, I understand it from their point of view. I'm counting on legislators to be more, responsible. But, I'm still waiting.
Well, yeah.
They don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah. Hey, it's my pleasure. Take care of yourself.